National Treasury Management Agency, the NTMA, being scammed out of 5 million euros in what is said to be a sophisticated phishing scam, phishing with a PH. And this is, this was being reported in Extra.ie, and they were talking about how whatever the scammers did, they had insider knowledge within the organization, which allowed them to breach some of the security protocols. They were using kind of like fake AI voices to try and break through the security measures, and one thing led to another, and they ended off making off with 5 million euros. And I'm of two minds about this, because John McGurk, our editor this morning, was saying that this should be a way bigger scandal than the bike shed, because the bike shed was only like 330 grand and this is 5 million. So it's exponentially a bigger deal. I'm I don't know what your perspective on this. We haven't discussed it yet, but I might take the pro NTMA position by saying the bike shed was outrageous because it was a decision that was consciously made, where they sat down and said, yeah, this is worth the money, we're going to spend it. And then they frittered away an ungodly sum of taxpayer money. Whereas we're in an age now where technology is so sophisticated that if you get hit by an insane scam using AI and very impressive technological trickery, I don't know that that's necessarily the most shameful thing in the world. Like, obviously, it shouldn't have happened. Obviously, it would have been better if we had better security measures in place, but technology is advancing so fast that staying ahead of that is difficult. And I think making a mistake and being outwitted by AI is not as big a sin as consciously signing off on an outrageous contract. I don't know if you have a different perspective on that.
Yeah, well, I agree that it's probably not as, on a personal level, as you say, not as egregious as signing off on some sort of stupid expenditure. But I would love to know more details of this, because it's just extraordinarily puzzling to me. As you say, this comes to us courtesy of Extra.ie. And I think some of the details are worth lingering on here. So the NTMA is obviously responsible for billions of euro, and that's taxpayer money. And so yeah, as you say, it was victim of a voice phishing attack where, yeah, as I say, scammers impersonated someone on the phone to carry out this scam. As I said, they had insider knowledge that allowed them to bypass security protocol.
Didn't they have like a
Um,
fake invoice as well?
I can't recall, but I know that Extra.e was reporting that it relates to the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund arm of the agency, and it was only discovered in recent days. And so this, it was understood that the scammers impersonated a legitimate entity that has dealings with that arm of the NTMA. But like, there's so much about this that I find questionable. I mean, for one of the foremost things was they noted in the article that the Department of Finance was only informed of the issue after queries from Extra.ie. Like, how does that happen? How is a state agency scammed out of 5 million euro in an apparently is a criminal manner? We obviously, don't know all of the details here. Um, and the Department of Finance only finds out after a newspaper gets in touch with them, a publication gets in touch with them to ask about it. Like, so that's a major problem, first of all.
Maybe it's like you've blown your life savings on roulette at the casino, and you're trying to figure out how you're gonna break this to your wife. Like, you're
Yeah.
gonna tell her, but you need to take a couple of days to be like, how could I package this in the most divorce-proof way possible?
Yeah, well, it must have been. I'm sure there probably were a few sweaty brows in the wake of this, but like, and rightly so, because as I say, you're taking the sort of slightly pro NTMA position on this, like not giving away personal details or conducting massive transactions over the phone. And I'll get to NTMA in a minute, but that's like an absolute uh basic, I so with people that you can't be 100% sure of, is the absolute basic in relation to like anti-fraud advice. Like, you look on Garda websites, they'll give you that I know obviously it's slightly different in business. Who knows how many conference calls they've been having with this organization, in their regular dealings with them or whatever. But it just seems extraordinarily suspect to me that I just find it so hard to believe that AI is at that level where, they're able to sufficiently impersonate the voice probably of someone they'd been dealing with. Because if it wasn't the voice of someone they'd been dealing with, if they say said I'm someone new in the organization or someone you haven't dealt with before, that should have raised red flags first of all. And obviously this is all speculation. We have no details in relation to this. But I just find it extraordinarily suspect that, like, without seeing anyone, without having any sort of like concrete confirmation that this was allowed to transpire. So yeah, while they were tricked and they didn't just sign off on something egregious, I find it astonishing that a state agency in charge of so much taxpayer money would be able to be tricked on this. And um, it's clearly an outstanding issue for the state because as the Extra.ie described it as the most sort of significant cyber crime or cyber attack incident since that malware ransomware attack on the HSE back in 2021, I think it was. So this is the sort of thing we know the state has sort of poor cybersecurity or poor track record on it, but at this stage you would have to be thinking like time to like bump up the salaries. Whatever about public servants getting crazy salaries. It's time to bump up the salary big time on this in order to attract someone who actually knows what they're doing in order to stop employees or people being tricked with this stuff.
Yeah, I would love to know. I would love to have a cybersecurity expert take a look at our systems and just report back brutally, honestly, like how I feel like it would almost be a national security threat if people knew how vulnerable we were to hacks. Like I think when the HSE ransomware attack happened, they found that there were still some computers that were using like Windows 7 or something, like this kind of a way.
Yeah.
And uh that might be very meaningful depending on what kind of information was on it or might not, but still it's just not a good. I really do think that we're not prepared in this country for the kinds of technological advancements. Like I hate to say this, I'm not being ageist. I have great respect for my elders. I think as a conservative especially, you have to give homage to the generations that went before you. But I feel like a lot of these organizations are run by and staffed by boomers who don't know what they're doing. Which is by no fault of their own. It's generational. I will one day be an older man, and my son will be telling me about his holographic car that he drives somehow, and it's made entirely of light, and I won't know what the hell he's talking about. So, no disrespect to the individuals involved, but still, uh, yeah, I just feel like we're not institutionally ready for this kind of rapid advancement that we're seeing.